In 1995, a car showed up to the most brutal endurance race on Earth in 24 hours, non-stop. Rain, darkness, exhaustion, mechanical failure. The kind of race built to break purpose-made prototypes that cost more than most companies make in a year. And this car wasn't one of those. It was underneath the roll cage in the wing, basically a road car. The same car a customer could drive to the grocery store. It won. Not just finished. Won. Outright. Beating machines that had been engineered from a blank sheet of paper for one single purpose: to survive Le Mans. The car was the McLaren F1. And the strangest part of this story isn't even the win. It's that McLaren never wanted to race it in the first place. Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll understand why this one race is still considered one of the greatest upsets in motorsport history, and why almost nobody planned for it to happen. To understand why this win was so strange, you have to understand what the McLaren F1 actually was when it launched in 1992. Gordon Murray, the designer behind it, wasn't trying to build a race car. He was trying to build the ultimate road car. No compromises, no marketing checklist, just pure engineering obsession. He convinced BMW to build a completely bespoke engine for it. A 6.1-liter naturally aspirated V12, no turbo, producing 618 horsepower and revving smoothly all the way through the range. Here's a detail that sounds made up but isn't. The engine bay was lined with real 24-karat gold foil. Not for show. Gold reflects heat incredibly efficiently, and Murray needed to protect the carbon fiber tub from the engine's own heat. The whole layer weighed about 16 grams. Less than an AA battery, but it did exactly what it needed to do. No ABS, no traction control, no power steering. A manual gearbox, at a time when Formula One had already moved to paddle shifters. 3 seats, with the driver positioned in the middle, slightly ahead of the 2 passengers, a layout nobody else was doing. It was, at launch, the fastest production car in the world. And here's the important part. McLaren built this as a road car. Full stop. When wealthy customers who had bought one started asking if they could race it, the company actually resisted. Ron Dennis, running McLaren at the time, wasn't interested in diluting the brand with a racing program he hadn't planned for. But customer demand kept building. Sales had slowed during a recession, and a race program looked like it might do double duty, as motorsport pedigree and as marketing. So almost reluctantly, McLaren agreed to build a race-legal version. They called it the F1 GTR. 9 were built for the 1995 season. Here's what makes this story genuinely strange, if you know anything about endurance racing. Building the GTR barely changed the car at all. Compare that to what rival teams were doing. Porsche, Ferrari, and the prototype manufacturers were spending years and enormous budgets designing cars from scratch, purpose-built for exactly this race, with aerodynamics and mechanical packages that existed for no other reason than to survive 24 hours at Le Mans. McLaren, by contrast, stripped the interior, added FIA-mandated safety gear and a roll cage, bolted on a larger rear wing for downforce, swapped the road car's brakes for carbon units, and detuned the engines slightly to meet racing regulations, down from 618 horsepower to somewhere around 600. That's it. The core of the car, the chassis, the engine, the fundamental engineering, stayed almost exactly as Gordon Murray had built it for the street. The finished GTR weighed 915 kilograms. Light. Astonishingly light for a car with a full-size V12 and a cockpit built for three. Rival engineers looked at this thing and by most accounts didn't take it especially seriously. It hadn't been built for this race. It had been built for rich people to drive on public roads. Why would it survive 24 hours of the hardest race in the world? June 1995, Le Mans. And almost immediately the weather turned against everyone. Heavy rain soaked much of the early race. This mattered enormously because the purpose-built prototypes, the cars designed with one single goal of raw speed, struggled badly in the wet. Their aerodynamics, tuned for dry weather grip at extreme speeds, became a liability. Drivers were fighting for control on a track with almost no visibility. The McLaren F1 GTR, with its more balanced road-derived setup, didn't have that problem to nearly the same extent. It wasn't the fastest car on the grid in a straight line, but it was drivable, predictable, and critically, still running when faster cars were spinning off or limping back to the pits with damage. Behind the wheel of the eventual winning car, Chassis 01R, was a three-driver team. Finnish driver J.J. Leto, Japanese driver Masanori Sakia, and French driver Yannick Dalmas. It wasn't a smooth 24 hours either. The team dealt with mechanical scares along the way, including a fuel pump warning that had them running much of the race on a backup system, hoping it would hold. It held. Hour after hour, as faster, more specialized cars fell away with damage or simply couldn't cope with the conditions, the McLaren kept circulating. Reliable, consistent, unspectacular in exactly the way that wins 24-hour races. When the checkered flag came out, the McLaren F1 GTR Chassis 01R, the very car McLaren had originally kept back as a factory test mule, crossed the line first. Outright winner, not class winner, outright, beating every purpose-built prototype in the field. And it wasn't a fluke result buried in the pack. 4 more McLaren F1 GTRs finished in the top 5 that same race. The next 4 positions, all McLarens. It became one of only a handful of manufacturers in Le Mans history to win the race on their very first attempt with a given car. And to this day, it remains the last time a road-based supercar, a car you could actually buy and drive to work, won overall at Le Mans outright. Every winner since has been a purpose-built prototype. One of the 9 GTR chassis built that year, Chassis 09R, didn't stay in racing at all. It was sold directly into a private collection. The Sultan of Brunei's, one of the largest car collections ever assembled by a single individual. A race-winning pedigree car, built almost as an afterthought by a company that didn't want to race in the first place, ending up as one piece in a collection of hundreds. Here's what makes this story stick with people who actually know motorsport. This wasn't supposed to work. Every competitive advantage in modern racing comes from specialization. Narrower and narrower engineering, purpose-built for one specific set of conditions, one specific race, one specific set of rules. The McLaren F1 GTR broke that logic completely. It won by being a brilliant road car first, and only reluctantly a race car second. Gordon Murray wasn't trying to win Le Mans when he designed it. He was trying to build the best car he possibly could, with no compromises for racing regulations, marketing departments, or anyone else's opinion. And that obsession with getting the fundamentals right, weight, balance, reliability, turned out to be exactly what you need to survive 24 brutal hours on a wet track in France, even if that was never the plan. Sometimes the thing built with no intention of competing ends up being unbeatable anyway. So, do you think a road car could ever do something like this again? Or has racing become too specialized for that to happen twice? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more of these real motorsport stories most people have never heard, subscribe. Because next up, I'm covering the Bugatti that vanished during World War II and has never been found. Subscribe if you want to see that one first.